Morning all. All right, news of the day video to start things off for your Saturday, March the 29th. Starting off at the top of the board, David Jiricek. A scary injury here. He suffers a lacerated spleen. He is out for the rest of the season. So Jiricek, of course, was a top draft pick of the Columbus Blue Jackets, who got moved to the Minnesota Wild organization this year, and now he's done for the season. So lacerated spleen, kind of scary, but he should be ready, I would think, for training camp, and then we'll see if he's in Minnesota's lineup for next season. Obviously, that would probably be the plan for Minnesota, but we shall see. Speaking of young players, this is that time of year where a lot of young guys get signed. I cover the first rounders only because, honestly, the board just gets filled with names pretty darn quick between NCAA guys getting signed who are undrafted and just all the draft picks that get signed, because you want to get all your ducks in a row before we get ready for next year's draft. You have a certain amount of time to sign your draft picks, or else they can become free agents. So Snuggerud has signed his entry-level contract with the St. Louis Blues. This happened yesterday. He was a number 23 pick in 2022, and he's joining the team at practice on Monday. So exciting news for Blues and their fans. For other teams in the West and for fan bases in the West, it may be rough news because Snuggerud's seen as a pretty top-notch prospect for St. Louis. So kind of exciting to see what he might be able to do when he makes his debut as soon as this coming week. Now, moving on to tonight's National Hockey League action, the Dallas Stars. They're in a position where they can clinch a playoff spot. If they win, and if the Blues or Flames lose in any fashion, Dallas is in the playoffs. They can also clinch if they get a point in their game today, and it's combined with a regulation loss by either the Blues or the Flames. So they're 1 point away from clinching themselves a playoff spot. I think they'll get there. My guess is that Dallas, between now and the end of the season, will garner at least one more point, but they could officially have that X next to their team name for playoffs soon, as soon as tonight, right? So we'll see what happens there. So Chicago's gone through their rebuild for a long time now, and I think we're starting to see the fruits of that rebuild. You've got Nazar playing very, very well. Korchinski's now back up with the team after spending most of the season in Rockford. Obviously, Bedard's going to be the center point for the future, but there are a lot of good young players. Vlasic comes to mind. Crevier's got some potential. But now, Chicago has a couple of players they've just signed who are expected to make their debut at the Blackhawks tomorrow against Utah. Starting with Oliver Moore, signs his entry-level contract. He was a number 19 pick in 2023. I think he was a steal at 19. We'll see whether or not that ends up being the case. Sam Rinzel, a number 25 pick in 2023, also signs his entry-level contract. So that's two first-rounders that will be making their debut for Chicago as soon as tomorrow. So honestly, the Chicago Blackhawks next season should be a much better team, and they have a lot of cap space this summer, so we'll see what they end up doing with that. But yes, the worst, I think, is behind it for Chicago, and starting next season, we'll probably see them close to where like Anaheim is this year. Maybe a little better, but should be an interesting summer in Chicago. Imama, who has been up for the Pittsburgh Penguins for a while now, basically since the deadline. I think he's been in their lineup for every game. He is done for the season. He has had surgery to repair a bicep, which tells me he tore the bicep. 4 to 6 month recovery for Imama. It's always tougher for a fourth liner, for somebody who's trying to carve out a spot in the bottom six in the National Hockey League, because those players tend to be more easily replaced than your top six, your really talented forward type. So we'll see what happens with him going forward, but it's going to be a 4 to 6 month recovery for Imama. Detroit. So Detroit's gone through it lately, and they're going to be without Soderblom for the next couple of games. He's not playing today, and he's doubtful for Tuesday as well. As far as I've seen, it's undisclosed. But as I've mentioned recently, I don't even put if it's upper body or lower body anymore, because I don't even know if they're honest about that anymore. So the fact that it's undisclosed, they're all kind of undisclosed at this point. But not having Soderblom's going to hurt, because he has been a key figure for them over the last couple of months. He's been playing a pretty prominent role on the team, and looks ready for full-time action in the National Hockey League for a full 82-game schedule next year. So he's at least going to miss the next couple of games for the Wings at a time where they need all hands on deck. Hellebuck set a franchise record for the Jets last night with his 7th shutout of the season. And Hellebuck, during that game, was showered with chants of MVP from Winnipeg fans. So it is likely going to come down to, I would say, Hellebuck, McKinnon, maybe Draisaitl, depending on how many games he plays, how things go for Edmonton down the stretch. But yes, Hellebuck has now set the franchise record with his 7th shutout of the season, and he has a lot of shutouts in his career. Hellebuck's a pretty good goaltender. I know, hot takes from the THG guy. At any rate, yeah, so Hellebuck, deserving of all the MVP chants. We'll see if he gets that at the end of the season. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. PWHL news, they have suspended Boston's Kelly Babstock for the next 2 games for a slew foot. They went through and described exactly how the incident took place and why they felt that this was worthy of a suspension. So the transparency is there on that. For Boston, they're not really in tough to make the playoffs, but we'll see whether or not they're negatively impacted by Babstock being out. The only team that's clinched a playoff spot at this point is Montreal. Boston should get there, but we'll see if this affects them over the next couple of games. So this is more of a local thing, but this is WHL related as well. So I thought I'd place that in this video. I was reading an article yesterday on this. So Chilliwack Mayor came out and he conducted an interview with JR Country, a radio station from Vancouver, and JR Country's out of Vancouver, right? At any rate, radio stations aren't really as centralized as they used to be, anyways. But he came out and basically said, "I don't agree with going away from the BCHL. I talked about how Chilliwack's, going to be out of the BCHL and going to the WHL, but they're not taking the Chilliwack Chiefs franchise with them. The Chilliwack Chiefs are going to move, and." I think the mayor makes some good points, and they're not dissimilar from what I was saying when this news broke, that the WHL was adding Penticton, which makes total sense. Penticton V's, great organization. But the city of Chilliwack was going to get, the opportunity to have an expansion team as well. The expansion fee of $15 million is a lot of money. And I think the concern about the WHL makes sense, but he's come out and apologized and said that City Council would have done their homework on all this and that he supports it. But he was not there for the public announcement, and he said in the interview that he didn't feel right going to that. And he talked about how much the Chilliwack Chiefs have meant to Chilliwack. And I know this may seem weird, but the Chilliwack Chiefs have like a 30-plus, I think it's 35-year history in Chilliwack, something like that, on and off, because the Chilliwack Bruins obviously broke that up, but then you end up with the Chilliwack Chiefs back, and now they're moving out. And I think the concern makes some sense. The cost of a WHL team is going to be higher than what it is for a BCHL team, and the concern that you're spreading out too much hockey in the Fraser Valley. So you've got the Vancouver Giants are about a 20-minute drive from 20-minute, half an hour drive, depending on traffic. The Abbotsford Canucks, of course, are local, but then to have like the Chilliwack, whatever the expansion team's named for the WHL, another 20-minute drive in the other direction, 20 minutes, half an hour again, depending on traffic. It's a lot of hockey that needs to be supported by a certain number of people that I don't know that the Valley's going to be able to do, because it's happened before. When the Abbotsford Heat left Abbotsford, in part it was there's not enough hockey fans that are willing to go out and pay to watch hockey games in the Valley to support all of these teams, on top of those who want to go to Vancouver and watch the Canucks. So it's a lot of money that's being spent to bring a team to Chilliwack, and I don't think the mayor's necessarily offside to express concerns. I do agree that he should have been at the announcement at the very least as the mayor of the city, but I totally understand his concern that going away from the Chiefs and the BCHL, which is totally supported and supportable by Chilliwack, that it may be a little more difficult when it comes to the WHL. Although Chilliwack residents came out and pointed out too that the Chilliwack Bruins got sold off to other owners, but they got sold off to other owners in part, I believed at the time, because they weren't making money in Chilliwack. There was a big public, when the Chilliwack Bruins were announced, there was this big public, sentiment of this is going to work, and they had this big PR deal, and in the end, it didn't work. The team was never very good. They ended up moving to Victoria and becoming the Royals. The Royals have had far more success than the Chilliwack Bruins ever had, And I agree with that concern. I do wonder if there are enough hockey fans in the Fraser Valley to support the number of hockey teams that are going to be there at the level that they are. Because the Vancouver Giants and, of course, whatever Chilliwack team there is, that's both going to be WHL. I don't know. We shall see. But let me know your thoughts, especially if you live in the Valley and that kind of thing. But if you don't, that's fine. That's fine. Let me know your thoughts on any of the items on the board as always. Hit like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support. It's greatly appreciated. I will talk to you again soon.